Hello and welcome, everyone. I'm Marissa Kozlov. It's great to have you with us for today's eMarketer Tech Talk, where we host guests from all areas of media, ad tech, and martech. Today, we'll learn how to plan, execute, and refine a successful marketing strategy using AI-driven measurement approaches. So now let's meet my guests from Adobe. First, we have Lily-Chiu Watson, Director of Product Marketing for Adobe Mix Modeler. Lily, so nice to see you today.
Nice to see you too. Thanks for having me.
So happy to have you. And then we also have Eric Matisoff, Principal Evangelist for Analytics and Data Science. Eric, good to have you with us.
Hey, good to see you, Marissa.
Well, I'm so happy both of you are here, Lily and Eric. And we're also happy to have all of you with us and our audience. So I just want to remind you that Eric and Lily will both be here taking your questions live after their presentation. So please just use that chat window on the right to submit your questions, and we will do our best to get to as many of those as possible during the Q&A. So please keep those coming. We have great content planned for you today. Let's get started. Eric, passing it to you.
All right. Thank you so much, Marissa. Thank you, everyone, for joining. I'm really excited for the content that we have to share with you today. Though I think maybe we can start with you telling me a little bit about your concerns. So we've got a fun poll that is just popping up onto your screens right now, where we want to learn a little bit about some of your marketing measurement challenges. So you'll have an option to choose. Number one is your issue, your biggest challenge, a lack of confidence in your measurement. Or number two, or letter B, an inability to connect data sources across all channels. Your option number C is conflicting results between multiple measurement tools and tactics, or maybe just simply an oversimplistic measurement model, or finally, an increasing data deprecation challenge where there's cookieless issues, third-party cookies are going away, or are they not, or maybe they are, or maybe they will eventually, and of course, privacy measures as well. So we'll check back in with the results of these in a couple minutes. So go ahead, submit your votes, and as we're going, let's actually share some useful information to you. So what we've seen is actually a number of really interesting challenges across the market. And so very much tied to that poll and the answers that you're filling in right now, the first challenge that I want to highlight is something that is listed here on the screen. It logically makes sense, right? There's a disconnect at the top that trickles down to other teams. And it starts with how the role of the chief marketing officer is getting completely redefined all the time. So McKinsey recently published a piece of thought leadership recently, and they wanted to focus on the relationship between the CEO and the CMO and the types of disconnects that they have, and they must overcome in order to fuel growth. So as I was reading through it, there were like a few really interesting key pillars to point out. And the first is that the role of the CMO is evolving like ever before. And it's becoming a little bit murky. Some CMOs in the world are gaining new responsibilities. They're responsible for the entire customer experience as well as a growth strategy. And this huge increase in ownership comes with a lot more accountability that is rooted in measurement, data, and business impact. And then you've got the other end of the spectrum where some CMOs are actually sharing more than ever before as well. They're sharing responsibilities with chief digital officers, and those lines across the C-suite are getting blurred. In fact, companies like Etsy, Walgreens, Lowe's, Hyatt, McDonald's, and more, they've actually eliminated the standalone CMO. Now, that doesn't mean that marketing is not important. It just simply means that it's getting redefined. Now, many organizations underestimate the role that marketing has in driving growth. This was another really interesting pillar that McKinsey shared, which is that only about 10% of the Fortune 250 CEOs have a background in marketing. And really only 4% even held a CMO-like role. And that's really in contrast to how 70% of Fortune 100 CEOs, I'm going to say exactly 70 of those CEOs, have backgrounds in operations or finance. So what's more, only 41 of those 100 companies have a marketer even on their board. And so naturally, those that do are oftentimes consumer-focused brands like Nike or Best Buy, Estee Lauder. But what in general, this all means is that marketing doesn't really have that credible seat at the table for C-suite conversations, for the board, and that ends up resulting in CEOs and CMOs not necessarily speaking the same language. So what is that problem? What that folks are having with language across the CEO and across the C-suite with the CMO is that part of it is just simply the tied to goals and measurement. CEOs care about business results. They care about revenues and profitability, whereas marketing, as I mentioned, it's continuing to evolve into this multi-dimensional technical discipline, as well as becoming increasingly complex because of new modern marketing limitations and expectations. So the number of strategies, tactics, tools, levers that are available to marketers, it keeps growing year after year after year, and it has for decades. So this crazy pace of change makes for even the most seasoned marketers to basically have more challenges with for CEOs to keep up with and to properly understand. So when the CMO isn't clear on their objectives or how their strategy impacts the company's growth, then that disconnect is comes all the way down to folks that are like hands on keyboard that are trying to implement that strategy, but don't know how their measurement work ladders all the way up to a higher goal. It feels completely disconnected. So this ends up resulting in an underestimation of the potential that marketing has to become a profit center within the business in terms of driving growth. Okay, so I know I've been on this slide for a couple of minutes, but there's a lot of really interesting information in this McKinsey report. There's two other things I want to point out. Number one is that marketers and analysts are reporting on endless metrics like cost per click, click-through rate, bounce rate, brand awareness, and so on. But CEOs, CFOs, and the rest of the C-suite are missing that link between those metrics coming from marketing and revenue. In fact, more than 40% of them are having challenges with that. The second thing to point out is that CEOs are focused on business outcomes, such as year-over-year revenue growth and margin improvements. But a lot of CMOs instead are focused on operational metrics such as brand awareness and recognition. Now, I cover all of this information from this thought leadership piece because it really tees up a lot of the rest of our conversation here today. There's a lack of unified measurement, and that results in executives that lack trust in marketing measurement, and marketers themselves often don't make decisions based on ROI because they don't have the data they need or they feel it's just inaccurate. So moving along, let's talk about a little bit around why or what marketers need in order to prove they need more budget and how you can advocate for that. So one of the questions that we hear decision makers asking all the time is, what incremental impact and ROI am I driving with marketing, whether it's paid, earned, or owned? Now, marketing can't take credit for every single conversion that happens. In fact, that has a lot to do with what has led to this loss of credibility coming from marketing. We know that there's already some level of market awareness or saturation. So we need to answer this question. What's the baseline of activity? What happens if I completely were to turn off all my advertising, all my marketing, and then from there, that baseline, then I can advocate for what I need in order to drive success and growth above that, beyond that baseline. So another question that we hear oftentimes is, what is the ROI of each of my major marketing channels today across different campaign initiatives or channels, etc.? So the important thing to consider here is that we can't look at things just simply in a silo. When a CMO is responsible, as you heard, for much more different a piece of the customer experience than ever before, that budget needs to be more comprehensive. So we need a tool that can help us understand the full share of wallet and understand where the biggest bang for the marketer's buck is coming from. Finally, you need to think about how that differs for customer acquisition campaign versus upselling an existing customer. So next up, we also need to be answering questions like this one. How much should I optimally invest in each channel to maximize my ROI? Now, if I have data telling me what channel works hardest for me, I should then be able to understand what budget I should ask for next time so that I can get the same result, if not better results. And finally, we need to be thinking about what I should be doing to optimize my media weekly in addressable channels that I have the opportunity to make those changes. So all of this information I just ran through, all of these answers to these questions, they don't mean anything if I can't act on them. In fact, I've been in the digital and marketing industry since 2007 and always focused on analytics and data. And that's always the question that I like to ask is, if we're collecting all of this data, what's the point if we're not actually going to do something with it? And so that is actually the thing we need to be thinking about, is where are the opportunities to impact your campaign based on all of this data that you have here. So aside from the organizational alignment issues that I was talking about previously, there's real dollars that are at stake here to be considering as well. So Forrester reports that when brands can effectively answer the questions that you saw on the left side of this slide here, they're reporting a 10 to 15% higher ROI based on their budget allocations. And furthermore, 64% more conversions are reported when the right tactic is chosen. So what's our bottom line here? Measure what matters to overall growth so that you are running in the same direction. Everyone is aligned. Operational metrics continue to be essential for marketers to do your job, but that unified measurement allows us to bring a bigger picture that incorporates campaign level performance as well. So we have this really interesting new approach to modern measurement that we've seen. And so we've talked enough about why data matters, but let's talk a little bit about the strategies that you can use to overcome some of those challenges that we've been discussing. So this cyclical framework that we at Adobe and other big companies and other folks in the space are thinking about is shown here. We feel that having a tool set that focuses on all three of these pillars, rapid experimentation, attribution, and market mix modeling, it enables comprehensive outputs that are tied to revenue and answers those key questions I was just mentioning on the previous section. So it's not a secret that marketing investments are primarily dependent on privacy-focused solutions. So dealing with the signal loss coupled with third-party cookie implementations that we've already seen take place means we can't rely on just a single measurement method to rule them all. There's no magic ring that can answer and solve for all the problems that we have. Instead, we need to be thinking about all of the different tactics that we have to measurement. So if we start at the top with rapid experimentation, this is one that has really, for decades, been something that we've been talking about at Adobe, but has really increased as the advent of AI gets more and more deployed for our customers. The incorporating AI into all aspects of a marketing campaign's execution means that we can get messages in front of our customers with more variety, with more speed, and more scale than ever before. And with that comes the inevitable question of which variant is working. Is there one that works better on one channel for one audience, one that works better on another channel for a different audience? The answer is probably yes, but you need to know incredibly quickly, faster than ever, what the right answer is in order to increase those margins and find that higher ROI that we're talking about. So you need to experiment with those results and then be able to tie that those results back through attribution. So it can be hard to do at scale across the open web, even today, because there's signal loss from ad blockers, low acceptance rates of cookies and tracking, plus walled gardens. And we can get some of that data, and then we can use AI and machine learning methods in order to analyze and summarize cohort level data to understand those trends. So with the attribution over on the right, we know we can't look strictly at traditional MTA or MTA results where we can get them. We need to take optimization actions wherever we can. So if I run a media mix model that incorporates MTA scores, then I can get an output that will show consistency across those two metrics. I'll be able to understand how my social investment is performing relative to TV. But I can also understand how social is performing in the context of someone's complete digital journey within my brand. So if I'm testing multiple creatives with a social campaign, I can see which creatives are associated with more incremental conversions. And then finally, understand how to maximize my investment on social, even while the campaign is live. And so that ability to make those updates on the fly as you're learning ensures that continuous learning and improved ROI that we've been discussing. Then finally, over in the bottom left, we have market mix modeling. And building on what I was just talking about, we need to rely on this, but the old way of doing it just simply won't cut it. We need results quicker, we need them faster, we need them reliable, and we need a model that can provide results on much more of a regular cadence. Imagine instead of getting results from your market mix model in weeks or months, you can get it within hours or days. You'd be able to then use that output to plan your investment in areas of interest for experimentation. And around we go within that modern measurement loop here. So getting those updates in real time in order to understand how campaigns are actually performing compared to what was predicted is crucial here. So we'll be able to tie back to attribution, to our forecasting in order to drive a higher ROI, whether the campaign is still running or not. So in total, being able to connect that customer journey analysis from touchpoint attribution and then overall ROI to the campaign is really crucial for a comprehensive level of measurement. It allows for that performance metric that C-level folks like the CEO and CMO care about, while also sharing actionable ways to incorporate strategy. So as marketers, this allows us to capitalize on our strengths while also complementing and limiting our weaknesses. So with all of that information, I think I just threw something like 500,000 words at you. I'd love to see the results of that poll. So Marissa, can you tell us a little bit about how our audience is thinking about marketing measurement challenges?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first, it's been fantastic already, the presentation, and I can't wait to see what's up next. But let's talk about the poll. So again, for the audience, the question was, what are your marketing measurement challenges today? I'd love to hear your take on this. So about a third of respondents today from our audience, 32%, said that conflicting results between multiple measurement tools and tactics was their challenge today. We also heard that 28% said the inability to connect data sources across all channels was a challenge. 17% said an overly simplistic measurement model was a challenge. 14% thought a lack of confidence in our measurement is an issue. And lastly, 7% said increasing data deprecation because of cookieless and privacy measures. So again, the majority, a third of the respondents had the issue with the conflicting results between multiple measurement tools. What do you think of that?
Yeah, it sounds like this is the right webinar for you because we've just been kind of discussing all of these different tactics and tools and ways in which a unified measurement plan can help solve for some of those challenges. And actually, it's exactly the types of challenges that we're having and we had been having in our marketing team here at Adobe. And it's something that we've used technology and then grown from there to make it more available for Adobe customers as well. So I'm thrilled to have Lily kind of talk us through some of those different ways that we've succeeded with solving exactly those challenges that y'all have pointed out. Lily?
Awesome. Thanks, Eric. So yeah, like the challenges and the opportunities that you described, the challenges that we just talked through from the poll, those are actually really the exact ones that our own marketing team at Adobe recognized a number of years ago. So I think, there we go. So they were using multiple measurement solutions, data was siloed in different places, and they were getting conflicting incrementality results, right? So it really wasn't giving them the confidence in the investments that they were making for the digital media business. And what they really needed was a solution that could bring all of their marketing data across channels into a single place to run models off of. And it really needed to be fast enough so that they could respond to unexpected changes. So, what they did is they basically took a look at what was available in the market at that time. And because there wasn't anything that could fit their needs, they decided to leverage our own data science team to build it instead. And that's what has eventually grown over the last 8 years into the product that is called Adobe Mix Modeler today. So with Mix Modeler, they were able to bring together data from online and offline channels, and also at varying granularities, right? So it could be summary level data, like the performance data from walled gardens, as well as that rich touchpoint data from owned channels. And then they also incorporated business factors, right? Like market performance, promotion calendars. And with this system, they could finally build models that they could easily rescore and retrain quickly, right? So it really gave our marketers the ability to actually experiment with new channel investments, knowing that they would get feedback, right, about how those were performing. And it also gave them the ability to scenario plan for, future quarters, future time periods, but also as campaigns were in flight and as they were understanding performance better, right, in real time. So, these models could look across those 20 plus products, that we have in digital media. But the important thing is that the models could look at each product individually too. So they really got valuable insights at scale and also varying levels, right, across the business. And it was actually really like the success that we found with our measurement and planning. That's how we decided that, okay, you know what, this has like broad value for companies across industries, and we should make this available. The thing I love about the success, right, that Adobe marketing has had is like, certainly it's had great impact, right, on our business outcomes, but it's also really strengthened the relationship between, marketing, finance, go-to-market, and of course, with our executive leadership too, right? Going back to what you said, Eric, about, the CEO and the CMO needing to speak the same language. And the nice thing about this is that now, there's a lot of organizational confidence in marketing's ability to measure accurately, but also probably more importantly, their ability to then predict future revenue, conversions, ROI from budget, right? That they're potentially asking for, or maybe additional budget. So, looking also just beyond Adobe, we're seeing a lot of great success for our customers who are now using Mix Modeler. So I won't spend too much time here, but I think it's helpful to chat just like a little bit about the range of metrics, right, that can be improved when you have a trustworthy and scalable measurement solution. The end goal is, of course, to make sure you can accurately measure incrementality and plan effectively, right, to maximize your ROI. But, we also have brands like Michael Kors, where they're reporting over 50% improvement in efficiency, right? So it's leading to much faster time to value. We have a customer in media and entertainment. They have over 30 unique business lines, right? And they were trying to measure for these lines through a very lean in-house practice, and they weren't able to achieve the scale that they needed. And the great thing, that I love in this example is that it's still that same team that is owning measurement, right? It's just that they can operate much faster. And now they have, technology that the organization has confidence in, but also has access to. So there's that level of transparency there that is super helpful. And then our final example is a brand where they were able to identify a significant reduction in cost per acquisition savings by optimizing their channel mix for future quarters.
Nice.
So
Those are
go
so,
ahead.
Lily, I love each of these examples. There's some really, really powerful changes that we're seeing from customers. And what I'm wondering and hoping that you can walk me through, because I'm about to lose my voice, I think I've talked so much, is if you can tell us a little bit about how customers, like, what can they do and value in order to achieve those same types of goals? What should they value?
Yeah. Well, thanks for asking, Eric, because I was actually just about to go into that. So
I'll
we'll
toss
talk
you a
about
beach ball to hit out of the park any day, Lily.
Thank you. So we'll talk about, what actions people can take and also related to the framework, that you introduced. So the first step is adopting a solution that provides measurement across unified data, right? This means a system that can reconcile data from multiple sources and oftentimes in many different formats as well. But, there are other factors to consider too. We've seen that like some modeling solutions lean more theoretical than practical. And one consequence of this comes out when models take a really long time to develop, operate, return insights to the point where you lose the opportunity to leverage those learnings. We had one customer describe this as the pursuit of perfection at the expense of progress, which I thought was like a very eloquent way of describing it. Another consequence is when the models don't take into account that channels certainly impact each other, right? And there are synergies at play. And that happens when the model isn't built for the reality, right, that marketers face in how today's consumers engage and make decisions across multiple channels repeatedly and over varying periods of time. So that's like the unified insights piece. The second component is to assess like how is your forecasting and scenario planning building on top of your modeling, right? Are your measurement and planning connected? Does your measurement solution give you confidence in predicting future revenue, right? Future conversions and ROI from the budget and channel mix that you're formulating? Are you able to explain the investment decisions that you're making with data? As Eric, you touched on already, this could not be more critical in today's economic climate. And then the final component is, are you able to make data-driven optimizations when investments aren't performing as you planned? This can happen for a variety of reasons, right? Maybe a global pandemic, unexpected policy changes, aggressive promotions from competitors, or maybe one of your own campaigns, right, goes unexpectedly viral. You have to be able to access measurement on a fast enough cadence to first even know that that's happening. And then you need to be able to, adjust budgets and create new plans so that you can respond effectively and take into account the latest data that you have. Eric, I'm going to pass it back to you now so that you can show us how some of this comes to life using product and data visualizations, which I happen to know are some of your favorite things.
That they are. Well, thank you, Lily. So, I could talk about charts and graphs all day, but I'm just going to point out a few really cool ones that really tie back to the information we're trying to share. So this first one here is all about incrementality. So what you can see with that lightest blue along the bottom is that's our base level of conversion, in that we're able to basically say, I mentioned earlier, if we turned off all advertising and marketing, that is that base that we'd be starting with. And then our non-spend and spend growing up from there is exactly the type of enhancement that we're seeing based on the model that we've applied. So some really useful level of data here in order to distinguish, well, what value is the marketing group bringing in order to end up with that goal of a little bit more of a profit center for marketing. Next up, of course, as you would expect, you're able to break contribution out by channel. You're not limited in terms of how you can slice and dice that data. So you can see what's the base, what's coming from different advertising solutions. And then, of course, that all others bucket is just there. So we have a prettier pie chart, but you can continue to dig in to your heart's content. Then finally, like Lily mentioned, it's really important to build trust across the organization. So here we can see how there's a marginal response curve. And so if we've basically started to reach the point of diminishing returns at the top of that curve there, then perhaps we don't want to keep investing in that specific channel because we've already spent the most in terms of bang for our buck. The planning there takes these marginal response curves into account, as well as a whole slew of other factors when we're making within our planning recommendations for how you spend money in future investments. That's incorporated into the AI, which is really, really cool. Next up, digs farther into NTA, where we can better understand where along a customer journey it makes sense to deliver that Facebook ad or that email. And it kind of looks like if we end with an ad on Facebook, but send an email anytime, that'll help increase our conversions as well. And these are the types of insights that are really helpful to optimize channels going forward. In fact, this also helps from a perspective of informing those journeys and experimenting with them in a more data-driven way, just like Lily had been talking about as well. And then as you're in your planning mode, you're able to basically see a comparison of plans that result in the plan that you defined plus an AI generated one. And that combination of how you're affecting budget is really key for understanding how marketers may use budget across time. Speaking of plans, we also need the ability to assess performance as the campaign is going live, as we've mentioned several times. So imagine if you had that ability to tweak your spend based on revenue on a weekly basis, so that if your revenue goals aren't being met, you can then find different ways to capitalize and improve your ROI going forward. Of course, as you would expect, you can also continue to create new plans with any remaining budget if your strategy changes for any reason. Then last but absolutely not least, we also have the ability to power that connected experience across planning, marketing, attribution, modeling, and of course, tying that back to the entire customer journey. So with that tactical optimization strategy, you can tie it to your overall performance goals and make an impact while a campaign is still in progress.
All right. Well, thank you, Eric. Super cool to see all of those visualizations directly in the hands of marketers. With that, we encourage you to lead the charge in evaluating your measurement solution against the framework that we talked about. Make sure you're leveraging technology that's purpose-built, right, for your real-life marketing measurement and planning needs. Know what's at stake in terms of coverage. Understand what you're missing if you're only analyzing pieces of your investment in disconnected silos, or overly reliant on cookie tracking that we know already has huge gaps. And then finally, you want to be able to act fast on your insights, right? So people who are hands-on keyboard executing campaigns, they need to be aligned with, overall performance KPIs and objectives, but they also need to be able to access that performance and those insights quickly. You can follow that QR code to learn more about how we're helping companies achieve this with Adobe. And with that, I'll turn it back to you, Eric, to just tell us a little bit about Adobe Experience Makers.
Great. Yeah, thanks, Lily. So this is something kind of fun that we've been doing for a number of years, which are Adobe Experience Maker Awards. Adobe customers that are digital innovators that want to apply, nominations are available now. So head on over to adobeexperienceawards.com in order to hopefully be celebrated in one of the 9 categories that we have within our ceremony. So with all of that craziness, Marissa, I'd love to know what types of questions have folks been asking, and how can we further continue the conversation?
I thought the craziness was great. That was a really fantastic presentation. So thank you both so much for so much great information. It was so interesting to hear your perspective, to start on that relationship between the CEO and the CMO, and all that you had read through that study. And also really thinking about the Adobe story and some of the customer successes as well that you highlighted. And of course, all of those other details on the marketing mix modeling. So thank you both so much. And let's get right to those questions. The first question, Lily, this is a great one for you. There's a lot more than marketing spend that impacts business results. How do you account for that?
Yes, that's a great point. We've seen this, across brands, but also certainly like in our own business. So you definitely want a solution that will help you take into account other business factors, right? Essentially, like other things that are happening in the world that impact your business, whether it's internal or external. These examples can be, how is the market performing, right? How is the unemployment rate fluctuating over time? What are the key holidays that are specific to your industry? You want to bring actually all of that data and you want to be able to incorporate that into the model. We've seen that really improve model quality, right? Which is super important because then that gives marketers the ability to more accurately predict the outcomes of future spend and channel mix allocations.
All right, thank you for that. Next question. How does market mix modeling solve for the issue of signal loss? Eric, what are your thoughts on that? Signal loss is coming up more and more. What do you
Yeah,
think?
I'll take that one since I'm the one complaining about ad blockers and third-party cookies. So it's funny, I said I kind of got involved in digital in 2007, and I was working at a digital marketing agency where that was my job, was as an analyst tying media data to conversions in order to prove out the future for how budget should be spent across, you know, Yahoo and MSN and this new up and comer called Google. And what's been interesting is I feel like digital marketers are freaking out because that missing third-party cookie is causing more and more issues, even though we've been planning for it for how many years now. And the really interesting thing that I find as someone that is no longer an analyst of media data, but using tools like Adobe Mix Modeler, is how we're able to still find ways to connect the impressions, the clicks, and the cost data that we are still able to get from publishers, but without the granularity of, well, what was the third-party cookie ID that tied exactly the attribution from conversion back to the campaign, the publisher, the ad group, et cetera. And so being able to basically say, we've got a higher level of granularity of this media data, but we still have the full granularity of our conversions, and being able to basically fill the gap through AI and machine learning through these modeling techniques is really a fun revelation for me as as a longtime digital analyst.
All right, well, thank you for that explanation. That was really helpful. Our next viewer says that it's been hard to build organizational confidence in their decisions and underlying data. How can we improve that outside of adopting new technology? Lily, you gave so many great client examples. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, we've definitely heard this from many companies. And I think, how you approach it depends on like what are the actual particular reasons for the lack of organizational confidence. Sometimes it's because the company has tried to do this several times already, right? And so they haven't been very accurate. And so people have memories of that, right? That they're applying forward. Sometimes there's simply a distrust of modeling rigor, right? Or maybe AI in general. I mean, I think we've all gotten more comfortable in the last year, but still it exists. And then sometimes it's just because there are other groups actually that feel ownership over the same practice, right? And where we've seen companies find success, right, amidst some of these challenges, one thing is like you should bring in the key stakeholders into the decision process for new technology. Like it typically doesn't work that well when you do it kind of in secret and then, unveil it after. So, you want to ensure that you have consensus, not only on, what kinds of decisions are we going to make based on this technology, but also what kinds of decisions is it not applicable for, right? And sometimes I think it's almost that latter piece that teams forget to work out in the evaluation process as well. But yeah, I mean, that one is a tough one to unpack because we've seen like a wide spread of reasons for that.
Yeah, it's a
Right.
good point, Lily. It's like we've spent the last half hour talking about unifying and getting away from silos. Is decision making also needs to be there as well.
Yeah.
I really like your point about, figure out what the tool is good for and what it's not good for, and set that up from the beginning before any contract is signed or before any plan is put in place. Is make sure what you're going to be using these types of applications for.
Okay, thank you for that. Actually, I have an interesting follow-up question for you, and that's going to be our last question that we'll take today. How would Adobe mix modeling incorporate results from prior experiments? Lily, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm happy to take that. So that is a question that comes up and actually ties a little bit to the experimentation piece, right, that Eric talked about earlier. So within the modeling capabilities of Mixmodeler, you actually can incorporate what we call priors, or sometimes data scientists think of as prior beliefs. And so you can actually bring all of that into the configuration of the model itself. So there's a ton of flexibility there. And it's great because it gives you the ability to build on the learnings that you already have. And you can actually assign like a numeric confidence to how strongly you feel about that belief. So depending on, how much data is behind it, or maybe it's, a senior leader's hunch, like you can adjust that as well as you're creating the model.
All right. Well, thank you for sharing that. Lily, Eric, it was so wonderful to be with you today. Thank you for the great content and, of course, for answering those questions. We appreciate you being here.
Yeah, thank you, Marissa.
Thanks a lot. So again, before we wrap up, let's take a moment to talk about some things happening on eMarketer's media channels. You can register for live analyst and tech talk webinars on our events page at emarketer.com/events. eMarketer's daily podcast is called Behind the Numbers, and I highly encourage you to take a listen. And finally, we have a variety of newsletters to subscribe to. Thank you all for joining us today. And thanks again to Lily, Eric, the team at Adobe, and our eMarketer studio team behind the scenes for making this webinar possible. We'll see you all on the next Tech Talk.